Shout out to this fan for coming up with the idea to this video. If you have any cool ideas for a future video, let me know in the comments below. I may just give you a shout out. What's up, Net Soldiers? I'm the Alliance, and today I will be doing a Star Wars list to end all Star Wars lists. For today, I will be listing my top 10 best moments from all of Star Wars. Now, before I begin, I have a couple of other Star Wars lists in the description below, so if you enjoyed this video, please consider checking those out, and remember to like, subscribe, and turn notifications for more Star Wars fun. Now, with that said, let's state some ground rules for this list. First off, what does best mean? For it's subjective depending on who you ask. So I'm judging my personal top 10 best Star Wars moments off of their overall awesome factor. So this means the scene could be happy or super sad, but as long as I consider it awesome, it counts. So feel free to list your top 10 favorite scenes in the comments below. Now with that stated, let's begin. At number 10, I have Vader's arrival. This scene to me, and I'm sure to many others, is the best scene in all of Rogue One. And although you could make an argument that it was purely fan service, which it kinda was, at least it was fan service done right. I mean, we've seen bad examples of fan service, and I think the inclusion of Darth Vader in the film's finale was an epic one. I mean, honestly, just ask anyone who saw Rogue One. It doesn't matter if you're a Star Wars fan or you're a non-Star Wars fan. Even if someone completely hated the film, they're always like, yo man, Rogue One was booty, but that Darth Vader scene though. And although Rogue One was a fairly standard Star Wars movie in my opinion, I have to admit, Darth Vader's scene made the film worth it to me. At number 9, we have Maul and Savage versus Palpatine. The Clone Wars TV show is loved by many and regarded to be one of the best things out of the prequel era. But with all the show's awesome moments and scenes that could probably warrant their own list one day, I personally think this scene is the best of the series. In this fight, we see Darth Sidious go toe-to-toe with Darth Maul and his brother Savage Opress in an impressive display of animation and skill. The greatest aspect to this fight is that Palpatine is just having a great time doing it. The fact that he is having next to zero struggle against these two very formidable foes, I think it perfectly showcases Palpatine's great power and why he's the Lord of the Sith. So not only was this fight awesome, but the series ended shortly after its airing. And so, because of this, I feel this scene best represents the pinnacle of the show's glory. And it really makes me wish they would have finished the show's full run. At number 8, we have Anakin defeats Dooku. This fight can best be described as short but sweet. It represents just how far Anakin has come since Attack of the Clones and instantly shows the audience why Anakin was known to be one of the strongest Jedi to ever live. And that's mostly why this scene exists. Besides just killing off Dooku just to get him out of the way, some may argue that this scene is purely here just to have a lightsaber fight. But I think this scene has deeper threads than initially presented. And I think those threads add a weight to this fight that makes it one of the best in the entire series. Like I previously mentioned, the last time we saw Anakin fight, not including the Clone Wars TV show of course, was at the end of Attack of the Clones. He was arrogant and cocky, choosing to charge Dooku full on without putting up a defense. And he was smacked aside because of it. However, the Anakin we see in episode 3 is not only stronger than before, but he also lacks the underestimation trait that he had from before, and defeats the man who not only took his hand, but also had his mother killed. And it's for these reasons I feel this scene is one of the best. At number 7, I have Kylo and Rey versus Snoke's guards. This moment is similar to the moment I have at number 10, in where this is by far the best scene in the entire film, in my opinion. I like this scene because not only is it badass to see Rey and Kylo teamed up, but this scene to me was just pure Star Wars fun. No matter if you hated The Last Jedi or if you loved it, you gotta admit this scene felt like pure Star Wars. At number 6, I have Yoda versus Palpatine. This fight is one of my favorites, for although it's short, I think it does a great job of not only displaying the best of the light side against the best of the dark side, but it's quite poetic in representing the fall of the light to the dark. What I mean by this is the prequel trilogy represents the fall of the light to the darkness, while the original trilogy represents the return of the light. Kind of like how in the end of Revenge of the Sith, Anakin turns into Darth Vader, but at the end of Return of the Jedi, Vader turns back into Anakin. And so, the fight between Yoda and Sidious is the personification of the light and the dark. And just like how the prequels end with the darkness prevailing over the light, so too does Sidious over Yoda. So I'm a big fan of that poetic structure. Also, another thing I absolutely love is how happily evil Sidious is. He could possibly be in the hardest fight of his life, but he is just having the most fun time doing it. I just really love that. At number 5, I have I Am Your Father. So chances are, if you were to go onto the YouTube search bar and look up the top 10 best Star Wars scenes, this single scene would most likely be in the top 3. And although it is arguably one of the most iconic scenes in all of film, I personally think there are a few that are a little more bestier. That's not a real word, but we'll use it. And of course, we'll get to those parts later on in the video. And honestly, I want to talk more about this scene, but when it comes down to it, you all know why it's as good as it is. And so, I'm just gonna move on. At number 4, we have Darth Maul versus Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. This scene is epic for so many different reasons, but the reason I like the most is that it took what we knew of lightsaber fights and cranked that bad boy up to 11. It was this scene that showed us the heights of which lightsaber fights could reach, and it presented the skill and finesse of Jedi and Sith before Luke Skywalker's time. Now, there are some who absolutely despise the prequel lightsaber fights because they don't feel as natural, for the choreography makes them look like they're dancing. And I've said this before, so I'll say it again. To me, I have absolutely no problem with the prequel lightsaber fights. I think it makes sense for both combatants to look as though they are dancing in a duel, because if both combatants are trained in the ways of the Force and lightsaber combat, for each fighter is not only trying to attack and defend, but they are also trying to outsmart or even use the Force to predict their opponent's moves and strategy. And I think this fight shows that perfectly. At number 3, I have Palpatine and Anakin at the opera. So this scene has always been one of my favorites ever since I saw this movie originally in 2005. And honestly, for as simple as it appears to be, there are a lot of really deep factors that impact this scene. From the ominous music to Palpatine's voice revealing the old tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise, it really seems to pull you into the scene. And as Anakin becomes pulled deeper and deeper into the story, we too are pulled along with him. I think one of the coolest aspects about this scene is that the tale that Palpatine tells is maybe only a minute long, but just in that small story, you get a full picture of who Plagueis was. And although we never actually see Plagueis in any of the movies, unless you think Snoke is Plagueis, in which case then we did see him, Plagueis almost becomes a fully developed character in just one scene, and still, there's just so much mystery about him. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the mental gymnastics Palpatine is playing on Anakin this entire scene, giving Skywalker little hints here and there that Palpatine was the apprentice who killed Plagueis without fully saying it. I just think all in all, this was a masterfully crafted scene. And when people call the prequels trash, just show them this scene and it will most likely improve their views. And if not, well, then I guess they're just sacks. At number 2, I have Vaders Redemption. I always love this scene, for not only did Anakin return to help his son Luke, but it also symbolizes the return of the light and the victory of the heroes. This scene is much like the I am your father scene, for everyone knows it's epic and I don't feel like I have to really add any more to it. So you already know why it's number 2, and that's why it's number 2. And at number 1, I have Anakin and Obi-Wan's epic clash. So I asked myself, what could be more epic than Anakin's return to the light? Well, Anakin's fall to the dark. There are a few scenes where Anakin could be perceived as falling to the dark side, but I am under the belief that Anakin truly fell to the dark side when he force choked Padme. I mean, just think about it. The events leading up to this moment were Anakin doing what he needed to do to save his wife and their unborn child. In the Chancellor's quarters, the moment Anakin helped kill Mace Windu was not where he truly became Vader in my eyes, but after seeing what he had done, he realized there was no turning back. And so, he then proceeded to execute Order 66, which was pretty evil too, but it was all done to gain more power to save Padme. So when Anakin had achieved his victory and power on Mustafar, he let it all go to his head and allowed the dark side to fully corrupt him, leading to him choking his wife, which then led to the epic clash between Anakin and Obi-Wan, where we get to see two of the strongest Jedi to ever live clash. I think the entirety of this fight, perhaps not the Tarzan part of course, but the music and the underlying emotion of these two brothers fighting makes this scene the very best of all of Star Wars. But of course, that's just my opinion. What's your opinion? What do you think is the best moment or scene in all of Star Wars? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting me on Patreon. There will be a link to that in the description below. And remember to like, subscribe, and turn notifications for more Star Wars fun. But that's it for now, guys. I'll catch you later. Peace.